The Dutch Golden Age was a period of great prosperity and economic growth for the Netherlands, lasting from the late 16th to the mid-17th century. During this time, the Dutch established a powerful trading empire, with a significant part of their wealth coming from the slave trade. Slavery during the Dutch Golden Age had a profound impact on the lives of countless Africans who were forcibly taken from their homes and brought to the Dutch colonies in the Americas, Asia, and Africa. In this video, we will explore the history of slavery during the Dutch Golden Age and its lasting effects on the world. Liking the video so far? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Slavery was not a new phenomenon in the world when the Dutch established their trading empire in the late 16th century. The practice had existed in various forms in different parts of the world for thousands of years. However, the Dutch were instrumental in transforming the slave trade into a global business, which would become a cornerstone of their economy. The Dutch began their involvement in the slave trade in the early 17th century when they established a trading post on the west coast of Africa. Initially, the Dutch primarily traded in gold, ivory, and other goods, but they soon realized the profit potential of the slave trade. African slaves were forcibly taken from their homes and shipped across the Atlantic to the Dutch colonies in the Americas. The Dutch quickly became one of the leading players in the slave trade, with their trading network extending across the Atlantic to the Caribbean, Brazil, and the southern United States. The Dutch were responsible for the transportation of more than 500,000 Africans during the course of the slave trade. Life as a slave in the Dutch colonies was brutal and inhumane. Slaves were forced to work long hours in fields, mines, and plantations with little or no pay. They were subjected to physical and psychological abuse, and their living conditions were often squalid and overcrowded. Slaves were seen as little more than property by their Dutch masters, who had complete control over their lives. They were often separated from their families and friends and treated as little more than animals. Slaves had no legal rights, and any form of rebellion or resistance was met with harsh punishment, including beatings, torture, and death. Slavery was a major contributor to the Dutch economy during the Golden Age. The profits from the slave trade were used to fund the growth of the Dutch trading empire and finance the construction of grand public works such as the Amsterdam canals and the Royal Palace. However, the wealth generated by the slave trade was not evenly distributed, and the benefits largely accrued to the Dutch elite. Slavery also contributed to the growth of the Dutch banking and insurance industries, with Dutch merchants insuring their ships and cargoes against the risks of the transatlantic slave trade. The effects of slavery are still. The abolition of slavery was a long and difficult process that spanned several centuries. The first steps towards abolition were taken in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, with the abolition of the slave trade and the gradual emancipation of slaves in the Dutch colonies. The Dutch were among the first European powers to abolish the slave trade, with the Netherlands banning the trade in 1814. However, slavery itself was not abolished in the Dutch colonies until 1863, more than 30 years after the British and French had abolished slavery in their colonies. The legacy of slavery during the Dutch Golden Age is still felt today. We hope to see you next time on Empires Histories.